Hey guys, hello gorgeous. As I've mentioned on this channel before, I was a huge G.I. Joe fan growing up in the 80s. Never missed an episode of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. I read a whole bunch of the Marvel comics, getting into the Special Missions comics, which I reviewed recently, Volume 1 from IDW. Had a whole bunch of the toys, still have a whole bunch of the toys, which I'll be reviewing soon. But I wanted to do a animated movie review today. It is G.I. Joe, Resolute. Now, this came out in 2009. It's a standalone film. It wasn't part of a new series. It's 60 minutes long, and for old school G.I. Joe fans like myself, you have definitely got to check this out. So the interesting thing about this is when it starts, it feels like it's a continuation of the 80s Sunbow Real American Hero cartoon. When you get about halfway through, you realize that it's not, but for the first half of it, I was just absolutely loving it. Loving picking up where the old show left off. A warning though, do not show this to your kids. This is really, really intense and violent. I mean, within the first 3 minutes of this thing, I'm not going to spoil it, but one of the most well-known Cobras gets killed. One of the most beloved G.I. Joes gets killed. It's not glorious. It's not in a blaze of glory. And the USS Flag is crippled in an attack. So lots of damage, lots of death immediately, and then throughout the whole thing. There's no pilots ejecting out of their jets in this one to safety. There are no guys jumping out of exploding tanks, and nobody's dodging any bullets in this thing. Lots of people get killed. So it really is your old G.I. Joe all grown up. And like I said, it felt like a continuation of the old G.I. Joe because Cobra Commander has been gone for a while, and then he resurfaces. Just the way he talks, it kind of sounds like he was the old Cobra Commander from the Sunbow cartoon. A sniveling clown goof who decided it was time to, be a little more serious about this whole world terrorism thing. But as it progresses, you find out that, I don't know if they changed their minds halfway through or they just decided time to homage other stuff, because there is a backstory of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, which is lifted directly from the comic books, right down to Zartan's involvement with it. So there's some Larry Hama influence there because the cartoon and the comic sharply deviated from the Storm Shadow Snake Eyes dynamic. So while this Resolute feels like a continuation of the old cartoon, it also feels like a continuation of the old comic book. And then as it progresses, it's got some of the sci-fi elements too from the old cartoon and comic. They literally have to go and do something in space or at a high atmosphere at any rate. And then it all comes down to Cobra trying to do some real heavy damage. I mean, they actually are able to do a really, really horrible thing in this thing. They set off an explosion and kill millions. So in the old cartoon, it was always G.I. Joe saving the day just by the nick of time. Well, this time, Cobra, they want to make a statement and millions perish. So that's why I said this really is the R-rated version of that old G.I. Joe that we all know and loved. So really, when that many people get wiped out, I did notice that my enjoyment factor went from through the roof to just kind of, oh, this is interesting. Because when you kill that many people, I mean, the stakes aren't just raised, they are shattered through the roof. And it's kind of like, well, what could possibly be worse than what just happened? It's kind of like, okay, damage control. Let's bail the water out of the bucket for the rest of the thing. But still, if you're a old school G.I. Joe fan, I highly recommend it. It's really cool to see all of your favorite characters with a slightly different spin on them. It felt to me like they were 10 or 15-year older versions of those characters, like an older Duke who's still very similar, but a little more grizzled. Same with Scarlet, same with Beachhead, Flint, all of the others. They don't deviate too much from the old cartoon. And being a huge fan of the original cartoon, I always felt like it was such a the G.I. Joe movie wasn't a fitting end to the Sunbow series. And then the Deke series, which kind of sort of picked up after the Sunbow series, was just awful, and I've wanted to try to enjoy it, but it's just so bad, and it continues to get worse and worse as the Deke series goes on, that it really ended the Real American Hero cartoon run with a whimper when it deserved so much better than that. So Renegades, G.I. Joe Renegades is a fun thing, but it's completely disconnected from the old show, and there are some other one-offs that Hasbro's produced for G.I. Joe. Sigma 6 was another series which just feels so different from the original thing. If you really want that period on the end, if you want that epilogue to the old Sunbow cartoon, I think the closest you're going to get is G.I. Joe Resolute. So definitely check it out. If you have a question or comment about G.I. Joe Resolute, scroll down and go to town. And to join the Nerd Tribe, hit subscribe. Nerdmaste. Hadouken!